the government-funded Standing Committee on Drug Abuse is David Turner.
There's no doubt that there are exaggerations about LSD, but there are very real risks, which are increased when you've got illicit manufacture. The risks are around people having bad trips, that they experience very unpleasant and very intense feelings, that they have accidents because they believe they can do things which they really can't do. There have been cases of people trying to fly out of windows. There have been instances of people thinking they could cross the road or cross a railway track because they didn't believe that what was coming towards them was a car or a train. And it's in those circumstances that people risk damaging themselves and damaging other people. There are also risks for some people because use of LSD can actually precipitate a mental breakdown which otherwise would not have occurred. And finally, when you take LSD, it is a drug more than any other I know which is dependent upon your own expectations of it and the setting that you're in when you take it.
By 1968, 1 million young Americans were estimated to have tried LSD. Many found its mental effects overwhelming. The bad trip, an unpredictable, unpleasant reaction to LSD, is a horrifying vortex of panic and fear that can cause long-term psychological damage. 1 in 4 who tried LSD without supervision encountered its darker side. Roland Muldoon, an actor, was one of them. Attracted by descriptions of visual distortion and mystical revelation, he took a large dose of LSD with a friend. Initially, the experience was as advertised.
It was a beautiful day, one of those rare days in Britain, and we happened to be in Lyme Regis, of all places, which, if anybody knows, is full of ammonites and ancient fossils. And they became alive, which hadn't been for millions of years. And you could look at any perspective of anything. You could look close up, or you could look wide, angled, and sure enough, you would see something different that you hadn't seen before. A new green, a new blue, a new sunlight, a new shape. It was all there and all possible.
But then things went wrong. A normally manageable event assumed terrifying proportions under the influence of the drug.
We went back to our campsite, and we were greeted by this irate woman whose farm it was, who we'd somehow camped wrongly in her field and had turned other customers away. And she called me over and she started to shout at me and dress me down. I tried to be apologetic. Perhaps I'd been even silly with her, but she hated me. Her eyes pierced through me. She thought I was a slob. She thought possibly that I was the real worst type of punk, as they were later called, that could ever come down from London and camp in her field. She hated me, and it really affected me badly. And I went back to where our camp was, and we had tried to cook some bacon on our completely used up Cala gas. And there, to my horror, were 10 or 12 slices of dead pig. I'd never seen it like this before, but there it was, sliced up, dead, lethargic pig. And I was totally horrified and shocked and numbed. And we got in the car and we drove back to London, and all the way back I was haunted by green monsters, Celtic monsters, cartoon kind of monsters, not real monsters, who were in my head but out of control and laughing at me, pointing their faces at me and going, ha, 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 we've got you. It put me off forever. I had this negative, horrible feeling that behind everything there was something horrible. I didn't want that experience ever again.
As the 60s wore on, more and more reports of people damaged by LSD reached Albert Hofmann in Switzerland. The substance that he once hoped might unlock the secrets of the mind had become a monster.
I did not feel me guilty because it is not LSD which is bad. It is just this use, this misuse and the wrong use which is bad and which caused all these problems. And therefore, many people told me, are you not feeling guilty about the whole story which you have created here? And I said, no, it's really not. And it is, we must in the right way, used in the proper way, LSD is not a dangerous compound. It is very, very dangerous if used uncautiously and without respecting his very, very deep influence on the psyche, even on consciousness.
But LSD was being used incautiously by very many people. Legislation became inevitable.
This year I will propose a Drug Control Act to provide stricter penalties for those who traffic in LSD and other dangerous drugs with our people.
In 1968, President Johnson took stern measures.
The time has come to stop the sale of slavery to the young.
Laws were passed in America and around the world, banning LSD and declaring it to have no medical value.
There's 27,000 people a year killed here in alcohol-related deaths. You don't see any big thing about alcohol being evil. There's how many people smoking and dying of it? How many of all of these, and yet nobody's been killed. Why is it that people think it's so evil? What is it about it that scares people so deeply? Even the guy that invented it, what is it? Because they're afraid that there's more to reality than they have confronted, that there are doors that they're afraid to go in, and they don't want us to go in there either, because if we go in, we might learn something that they don't know, and that makes us a little out of their control.
Did the establishment proscribe LSD because it revealed to the young a truth better concealed? Lord William Deeds, former MP and editor of the Daily Telegraph, sat on the committee that advised the British government to ban LSD. He denies metaphysical paranoia was involved.
We're talking of the 60s, when all these things were felt and thought and shared. And exactly the same arguments were advanced on the subject of cannabis, that in a sense it was part of an attack on youth culture, that middle-aged people drank and smoked, and young people were forbidden to use LSD and other. The difference, of course, is the dangers to society that those subjects respectively pose. And in our mind then, and in my mind now, LSD posed an element of risk which exceeded any other of the indulgences which civilizations were taking on board. There was no attack on young people. There was no political motive. It was founded on medical advice.
As well as the medical dangers, the committee in their report considered and then dismissed the possible spiritual benefits of LSD.
I find it very hard to accept that LSD offers what we could seriously call a religious or a spiritual experience. It can offer a transcendental experience. It can take you outside a sphere which you normally can think in or you live in. But to relate that directly to religious belief, to religious revelation, if you like, should be taken with a pinch of salt.
Few deny the reality of the psychedelic vision, but many doubt its worth. Is there anything of value to be found in the hallucinatory, irrational realm of LSD intoxication?